All right, Education 310. So we've had a great opportunity to debrief about your field experiences and what you've been able to accomplish and things that you haven't. And at the end of our class, we discussed revising the rubric. So here is a brief walkthrough of the revised rubric. And I wanted to do this so that I could just navigate it with you, talk you through it, and then you can refer to this video as needed as you're working on your reflection. So if you go over to your course content tabs and you'll go into your weekly folders, let me turn this on so that you guys can see it as you normally see it, which may be a little bit different than how my instructor view looks. If you go all the way to week 16, because this is going to be the week that things are due, you'll go in and you'll see a link for the rubric, a link for you to turn in your reflection, and a link for additional items. So your main reflection is going to be turned in through this field experience reflection link. If you have anything else that you want to send in with it, so if you're not doing the assessment notebook itself and it's not included in your reflection and you want to load it in here because you want to show me the data or some worksheets that they've been working on or whatever you may have, then you can upload it here. If you were able to do the assessment notebook, then this would also be uploaded here to support what you're writing in your reflection. But let's take some time and dig into the rubric so that we are clear on what the expectation is for your final, since it's such a significant part of your grade. So 4 pages, and here are your requirements. So when I say 4 pages, I mean to the end of 4 pages, not 3.5, not 3 and a line on the 4th page, but 4 full pages. You need to have an introductory paragraph for your site visit. You need to have a discussion about growth mindset, what things you saw or didn't see while you were there. A reflection on classroom learning environment, what you saw and didn't see while you were there with regard to a respectful learning environment, students being engaged, applying the content in real-world scenarios. And then you also need to have your classroom assessment practices, so types of assessment that students have been given, using data to inform instruction, teacher feedback to students, and students actually using that feedback. And then a reflection of your overall visit. And so this is not necessarily including your intervention group, but it can, but that will come later on. But this is just an overall reflection of your visit. And then somewhere in that you need to have a question about either your visit or the course content. So as you are reflecting on your visit and growth mindset, your visit and the classroom learning environment, your visit and classroom assessment practices, you need to be referring to the text that we have been reading. So there should be in-text citations from EDUC and from Popham. And if you have any outside sources that you've been working on or articles or things like that, you're welcome to add those in, because you're going to have citations. So those are in-text citations done in APA formatting and works cited, which is APA as well. So the whole paper does not need to be in APA formatting. You don't need a cover page, you don't need a running head, you don't need all of that information, but I am looking to see your in-text citations and your works cited, just so that you are referencing the body of research that you're using to support what you saw and didn't see, and that you are specifically doing that in your reflection and you are citing the evidence there in the middle of it. So none of this changed from the original rubric, so all of that is the same. And then we get to the part with the updated information. So I'm going to explain how the rest of this rubric functions. So if you had a group that did meet and you were lesson planning and you are able to follow the traditional rubric that was sent at the beginning of the semester, then you will continue to follow these white boxes with black lettering. If you were not able to do groups and you weren't able to plan and implement intervention groups, you're going to follow the rubric that's in the black boxes. It's the same section and the same element that you're reflecting on, but you may have to approach it in a different way. So let's take, for example, at first I'm going to walk through what you need to have if you did have a functioning group and you were able to plan and implement intervention groups. So if that's the case, then you're going to write your context for learning. That's the document that was shared out with your assessment notebook. I will go ahead and add that to the list of things that are in that week 16 folder. So I'll add that after this. And then if you were able to do functioning groups, you're going to skip down to this next criteria for your group. It's between 1 and 4 students. Now, obviously, you don't have 10 sessions, 20 minutes each, but I do want to just see what your groups were. Then you're going to jump down to the next section that's in the white boxes, and you're going to have some sort of document about your dates and times. Again, if you had a functioning group, this is probably going to be in your assessment notebook. So as long as it's there, it does not necessarily have to be in your reflection. Then you're going to have your lesson plans. Make sure that you're paying attention to the things that are required within those lesson plans. So if you are doing a group and you were provided a lesson plan, then you can use that, but you need to do some research to add these required elements to just make sure that, you know, if you were provided a lesson plan to implement but they didn't note a standard course of study, then you need to do some research and find out what that standard would be or should be. Then if you had a functioning group, you're going to skip down to the data for your teacher. You're tracking progress of the students, you're graphing, you're showing progress from pre to post, and the evidence is going to be in your data tab of your assessment notebook. And then you're going to skip down to data for student, and the evidence is going to be that your students are tracking their data somehow, and you're going to put that into your assessment notebook as well. And then you're going to skip down to the summary, so you're including the data about your group and your students in your reflection. And then your group reflection overall is, so that's why I was saying above, you're going to have a reflection about your site visit, but then you need a specific reflection about your intervention groups. So it's kind of two different reflections. The field experience presentation, don't worry about that, disregard. That is just, you guys are going to be just given those points for your conversation today. So if I am operating a group and I'm lesson planning, I'm implementing groups, I'm going to follow this white box kind of chain of criteria, okay? Now, if that's the case and I am functioning, I do have functioning groups, your context for learning is probably going to be in this reflection. Your group will be in your assessment notebook. Your log will be in your assessment notebook. Your lesson plans will be in your assessment notebook. Your data, student data, will all be in your assessment notebook. The summary of growth and summary of experience overall, that will be in this reflection piece. So if you want to integrate it into all one piece and you want to put all of that reflection piece in the same document as your assessment notebook, that is absolutely fine also. That's totally up to you. All right, now for those of you who were not able to do a group, if you were not able to plan and implement intervention groups, you will follow the rubric components in the black boxes. So the context for learning is the same. So here's for students who are not able to do a group, you're still going to answer the same questions in that context for learning. Your group, you're going to talk about the groups that may have been existing or interventions that may have been happening. You're kind of just talking about what you talked about in class today. What did you notice? What did you not notice? What was happening or was not happening? And just write your reflection on that for groups. So some of you had groups, but they weren't very efficiently run, and some of you didn't have groups at all, so you're just speaking to that. Then for your log, this is going to be more of just your total hours that you visited. This is just going to be something that you can just write within your reflection, or you can add a timesheet. If you have a timesheet, that's fine. If you're entering a timesheet, that's not going to count for one of your 4 pages. But if you have it on a different sheet, you can add that in. And then your sessions and notes is going to be a reflection of what you saw while you were there. So again, if you were not able to implement groups, you were able to at least observe while you were there. And so you're just going to reflect on what the standard was that they were teaching. Again, if they don't have it identified, you will do some digging to find out one that it could have been. Materials, student work, or description of what the students were doing, formative assessment, samples or description of the assessments, and then data. And if there wasn't any data, then, just speak to that. But so for the session notes and lesson plans, if you're just kind of reflecting on those pieces. So make sure that you touch base on each of those things. Even if it's something you didn't see, that you are inferring or you're just providing some information based on your reflection. Data for the teacher. So reflect on the data that you've gotten from your partner teachers and data that you weren't able to get. Talk about the accessibility of it, the use of it, the monitoring of it. Make sure that you are reflecting on the whole data element. So you were able to get it, you weren't, or you did, but it wasn't connected to what you were seeing. Just kind of talk about that data overall. Data for your students. If there was not data for the teachers, I would venture to guess there was not data at the student level. So just speak to that. But a reflection of student data, what did you observe as far as students knowing their own data and being able to speak to their own data? The summary of student growth, obviously you're not going to have results because you didn't have groups functioning. So you're just going to reflect on maybe some differences that you saw from your first or second visit, or conversations that you've had with the partner teachers about student growth, or just anything as it relates to student growth. If you have some possible data, that's great, but again, if you didn't have groups, you probably don't have data. And then finally, your group experience reflection is the same as this above. So it's well written, it's easily articulated and readable, contains no grammatical distracting errors. So you're just writing a reflection about your group. So again, just to clarify, the whole first part of this rubric, the first page and a half, is the same as it was, and everybody does the same. Starting here, if you had functioning groups, you're going to continue with the white boxes for what you need to have in your reflection of this part. If you did not have functioning groups, then you need to continue with the black boxes for what you need to have in your reflection. So you're still required for each part of it, but just a little bit of a different angle. Okay? So that should be it. Again, don't worry about the field experience video presentation. Just presentation. So don't worry about that. Everyone just gets those points. But you need to have this finished by May 4th at 11:59 is the deadline for turn it in. So that is absolutely the latest possible so that I have time to turn grades around for the end of the semester. So after looking at this, if you have any questions, please send me an email and let me know, since we're not meeting for class anymore. And I just want to make one final kind of thank you, and I sincerely appreciate your incredible flexibility as this course kind of unrolled itself very differently than intended. And so I apologize, and I own that because we definitely have some improving to do. Unfortunately, the first time you roll out a course, you don't really know where the issues are until they're there. So I appreciate all of your feedback, all of your support, all of your flexibility, and I just appreciate all of that. I apologize sincerely that this has rolled out the way that it has, because it was intended to be much more engaging and real world and informative. So if you have any questions about your field experience reflection, please send me an email. If you need some time specifically with me, email me to get the link for my calendar and sign up on a time for my calendar. Thank you guys very much for a great semester.